my mind is made up.
Hey guys, this is Eric Kyle, publisher of Latitudes and Attitudes magazine.
And I'm David Levesque, editor of Latitudes and Attitudes, and welcome to Three Sheets, our podcast where we chill and chat with individuals making a difference in the cruising lifestyle.
Each episode, we'll dive into all things cruising related and bring you some of the most influential characters out there. So sit back, grab your favorite bottle, light them if you got them, and enjoy the adventure. Hey guys, Eric Kyle here, publisher of Latitudes and Attitudes magazine, and welcome to another episode of Three Sheets, the podcast where we're checking out all things fun and lively that are happening in the cruising world. Got some very special guests today, Heather Lane and Brian Bosley. They're with a company called PHIBER, and they are our serious cruisers out there. We absolutely love having them aboard. And David, we're joined with David Levesque here as editor of Latitudes and Attitudes with Three Sheets.
Hey guys, how are you? Really stoked to get these two fine kids on the podcast today. So Heather Lane, that name sounds like an alias. Brian Bosley, not from the Bosley Hair Restoration Group, right? Something different? Okay. All right. Just double checking on that one. Yeah, you know, Heather and Brian, good friends of ours at this point, great advertisers in Lats and Ats, but there's a whole lot of stuff we're going to get into today, but it starts with cruising, and Brian's a cruiser, so that's why we want to talk with him primarily. Woo!
I'm interested. I mean, you guys are obviously outside right now, which is something that we're not accustomed to up here. I'm in Toledo, David's in Buffalo. We've heard of that big orange orb in the sky. Some people say it radiates heat. We have yet to notice it. Yeah. So where are you guys at? And just introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about yourselves.
No, you first. Ladies first. I'm chivalrous like that.
Aw, I'm lady. We're in St. Augustine, Florida, the historic city, sitting on the original, on Brian's house. He gets to live on all the time.
Sucks.
Yeah. And I'm Heather. I wasn't a cruiser until maybe, I don't know, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I have an uncle that lived on a sailboat, still lives on a sailboat. But yeah, I've known Brian for a long time and told him my goal is to live on a boat, and he also has a company that I help out with, so it's been a really good opportunity, and got to see a lot of stuff and logged. I calculated it for a presentation the other day, somewhere around 2,400 nautical miles as a mate, and about 35 years running other kinds of boats, fishing boats mostly. So I'm just enjoying the sun because, contrary to popular belief, Floridians, we do work. And this is me pasty. So I'm working on that since David makes fun of me so much for working too much.
So you guys are wearing sunglasses not just because you're hungover, but literally the sun is in your face, right?
Oh, no, it's because we're hungover.
There's
doesn't bother me.
multi-purpose. It is Three Sheets podcast, right?
It is.
Okay. I'm just making sure. I thought, okay.
Yeah, I have to hide the bloodshot.
Perfect. Cheers
and Brian, you have been acquainted with Latitudes and Attitudes in the cruising lifestyle for some time. I'm sure that you've probably logged more than 2,400 nautical miles, which, by the way, Heather, is 2,350 more nautical miles than I've logged. So I would very much so, yeah, I'd very much like to hear some of your history in the cruising space, Brian.
Yeah, man. I got tricked into buying my first sailboat. And I was living in the Keys at the time. My boss knew me better than I did, and he kept telling me what a great sailor I would be because I have an aviation background, electronics background. I've done a lot of stuff, failed at it all, got fired from every job. I moved to the Keys to basically escape and reset and figure out who I was at age 26. You know, I didn't subscribe I didn't fit into the mold of Norm. So, and nothing against Norm, but you know, it just never fit me. So my boss tricked me into buying that boat, changed my life, and gosh, almost 30 years later, here I am. Built two companies, second one now, PHIBER, based on a boating product, and done okay. Sailed a lot in the meantime, and just happy to be here, man. Woke up this morning, no white chalk lying around the body. It's a great day.
What's the boat you're on, Brian? What do you got?
So this is a Voyage catamaran. It's 50 feet. It's it is currently, as Heather pointed out, my home, but also where I sail. I take this thing all over. I've sailed this thing when I commissioned it, brought it up from Cape Town, South Africa, all the way to St. Augustine, and that was in 2017. That was a shakedown cruise, but been all over the Caribbean and all around the Southeast U.S. with it since. So it's got some miles under her keel.
I'm curious if I could just jump in here real quick. You did a transatlantic right out of the gate on this boat in 2017. That's a heck of a journey. So what is that transition like for you going from living in a brick and mortar home and deciding, hey, I'm gonna go live on this catamaran, and by the way, my first trip is going to be across the Atlantic.
Well,
Because he didn't live in a house.
yeah, I haven't lived in a house in a long time.
Okay.
So I when I was down in the Keys, I got that boat I got tricked into buying. It was 25 feet, and it was a shoebox. Great boat. I wouldn't trade those experiences in that. I mean, I had a hard time even parting with that boat 20 years after that I got it, and already owning this one. It was just an amazing machine, and it was where I was able to actually figure out who I was. And that boat, it sailed about 25,000 miles with me aboard. And I wasn't shy about taking that boat anywhere. It got a little uncomfortable at times through the seas, but being on a boat is natural for me. There's no brick and mortar in my life. I much prefer to be on the water, have been for a long time. I have that peace out there. It's where I've got my freedom and my liberty. There's no seatbelt laws. There's no 911. It's you, nature, and nature's God. And I love that feeling. It's truly self-sufficiency. And I live for that.
So a lot of our readers just basically sell everything, buy a boat, start cruising. That's not what you did. I mean, you have some sailing experience prior to all this, right?
Yeah. So the sailing was before the products and before all of the other business success. Sailing was and is who I am. There's no separation in life between being on a boat and being in business and living your life day to day. It's all the same for me. I don't see any difference between any of the realms of life.
So how do you separate you say you don't really see any difference, Brian. I understand that, but I mean there's the work life, which is, your products, your company, all that kind of stuff. And then there's the lifestyle of living aboard. I mean, how do you make that connection? How do you overlap that? How do you intertwine that? How is that? I mean, you're on a 25-foot boat, brother. That is a small boat. And when you're on a 25-foot boat and you're trying to figure out your career path and run a company, how do you do that with very limited space and ability? And if that's your home, I mean, explain that to me.
Well, I kind of do the same thing, though. I think one of the things that's really interesting one of the things that has been amazing is the ability to actually be connected, even when you're out in the middle of nowhere because of the availability of internet, right? So I remember 20 years ago working for a large software company, which is actually how I met Brian originally. But I was down in the Keys, and that was when Wi-Fi was first kind of available. And I would work, I had clients in North Florida, and I would be in the Keys working from hotels. I've always been remote, never from home. And I think if you're comfortable without conventional comforts, I don't need a door. I don't need a desk. I built one of my companies from this boat actually 2 years ago, moving from the BVI's up to the Bahamas. Developed an entire website, had multiple virtual calls. And then when you're not connected, you have a chance to actually delve into research and reading. And so obviously you're not going to manufacture toothpaste from a boat. So it's not like every job is available. We don't make, you can't flip cheeseburgers on here either. But it it's just not being tethered to conventional requirements, or worrying about missing things. You really don't. You just you kind of evolve to where you're at, and you can. I've had a lot of success my entire career, and then even more so the last few years, actually being out sailing, fishing. I spend a lot of time on fishing boats as well, and for 14, 15-hour days. And same thing, I got my laptop, and when we're doing the 3 and 4 hour runs off of New Jersey and Delaware, just getting it done. It's just you don't worry about the comfort, it's because you want to be at the water.
I think what it does is it gives you vision to go out and continue. Every company needs leadership and needs vision. And if you don't have that, then you're subject to the winds. And you can create 1,000 different parallels between being on the ocean and being on a boat and life and being in business. But for me, this is my inspiration. This is where I get it from, is being out here. I can't go back to my teams. I can't go to Heather and provide inspiration and vision without having this connection to the water and being on a boat. The mechanics of it, the spirituality of it. It's something that's very real. And I've managed to bridge the gap between living in a land of fantasy, but also carrying that through vision and leadership back to the team.
So it almost sounds like being on the water. I mean, without all the creature comforts, without all the stuff all the distractions of a home, all the worries and concerns and all the other stuff you have to do. It almost like frees up your mind, frees up your time, frees up your space just for all the thoughts, right? Just put everything together. It's easier to focus,
Until
right?
the impeller goes bad. Until an impeller goes bad, and there's like 14-foot seas and 20 knot winds, and you got to go figure out how to tuck in and change that underway.
Well,
But if you're comfortable with being uncomfortable, it's like, okay, I'll go fix it. So
yeah.
But yeah, it does free you up, I think, incredibly. It's so much so.
I think for a lot of people it's frustrating because they don't understand the connection I have with the water, and it's hard to translate that to a lot of people. If you're not out here, if you're not experiencing this, then you just don't know. Heather and I operate really well together, both in business and on a boat, because we're in tune with the environment, the surroundings, the work that has to be done on to succeed out here, and that just carries back over to the business world in a natural way.
Well, one thing that I would just like to mention is that we talk to a lot of influencers and content creators that are out there, that it's their job, it's their business to show this lifestyle and generate income from it through certain channels and, having followers and all that kind of fun stuff. And a lot of the content that you see on these channels are incredibly beautiful, outstanding, aesthetically wonderful images of all these great exotic places and these young, beautiful people enjoying all this. And everybody's like, oh my God, I want to do that. But then it's highlighted by this incredibly horrible experience that they're having that's causing such incredible drama. And they're reporting on it because their halyard broken, their jib is flying out, and they're just having all kinds of issues. And the prop got stuck, and then anchors lost, and we don't know what just all these crazy things. And that's kind of the way that they're generating their interest by reporting on all that kind of stuff on the cruising lifestyle. I am interested in talking to you guys about not just the cruising lifestyle, but being able to operate efficiently, which is what I think you guys are kind of getting to, that when you're working on the water and living the life that you like to live, then you're operating at a different plane. You're operating at a different level. and you're able to run your businesses. You're able to work without having to be an influencer or content creator to generate revenue. You can live the dream, and you can do that cruising.
I'm going to be hated for this,
Uh-oh.
but I don't subscribe to any of that. I don't do any socials. I stay off of it. I like to live my life. And yeah, I don't. I'm not, you're not going to find me on YouTube other than what Heather puts up. But my first inclination is when I'm at sea, it's not to run for a camera to show everybody else what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That's just not who I am. And I don't want to be that guy. I want to inspire other people to do things, but I think I can do that through product development or problem solution development. I'm a different guy. I'll never be the guy on social. As soon as something happens, I'm running for the camera trying to put it on YouTube. And God bless those guys. That's how they finance their lives. I think it's amazing. And for me, this is very real, and I do this on a personal level, not to finance a lifestyle.
Well, and I think that's really the point. And I'm just going to try to make this real crystal clear to everybody that's listening or watching this. You don't have to be an influencer in order to enjoy the cruising lifestyle, to be able to take that leap from what you're doing now, how you're working now, whether you're brick and mortar or whether you started off in a 25-foot Catalina. None of that stuff really matters. If you want to enjoy the cruising lifestyle, just go do it.
Yeah.
And you guys are a prime example of people who are not only working at a different level, a more efficient level, because you're doing what you love, but you're running companies from your boat. I mean, that's impactful, and I think people need to hear that, know that, learn that, and act on that.
The most amazing experience of being on the water is the people you meet. It's not the social side of it. It is meeting people in a natural environment where you have a common love for the water. And man, I get supercharged when I'm out there and meeting people that are on the boats and experiencing different things. And I'll sit there and listen for hours to the stories about their trials, and it's so much better in person than it is on a video screen. But that's also where the inspiration comes from. That's where the vision, that's where I get my batteries recharged to come back and do things in the business world. And I have to pay my bills. I'm not living out here, just trying to eke it out. I've done okay, and it's required a lot of effort and investment and a lot of pain to find a balance. But I found it.
I think though that it would be almost a miss if we didn't talk about the fact though that like I'm not an influencer. I've never been an influencer, but I'm always trying to influence something, right? That's the point of companies, is you're influencing somebody to do business with you. And what's fantastic about these things, right? These media accounts and marketing and things like Latitudes and Attitudes is you do have to network and connect. And that's where it plays a big role. And for people, face to face is amazing. It is much more successful and efficient as well, as far as if you want to, the art of the deal or whatever. But it would be a little bit of a miss. And I think Brian's got a team of people who leverage all of these other things that facilitate the success as well. And I think that the takeaway is that the problem with the influencer thing in general, and I was actually having a long conversation about this with a boat manufacturer this week, is that if we tell people that the only way to do this is you have to have this $1 million thing, or the only way to do this is you have to have a gajillion followers or a shit pile of money, we're actually eliminating that person that might try it because they think you have to have all of these things. And that's where it gets a little slippery. So I enjoy watching the influencers who are just, there's a guy I started following who sold everything and he bought a boat. He has no idea what he's doing, and he's doing it, right? So I think that inspirational stories, we all follow the guys that have 1 million followers and they go to crossing Japan and they're doing all these amazing things and they're well funded, and that they can actually have that exclusively as a lifestyle. But I think the inspiration to continue the culture actually is supported through social media and influencing people and having face-to-face conversations. It's a mixture. Because at the end of the day, it does afford a full lifestyle. Because there is other things. I'm a mom, so I've got to pay for basketball and baseball and all these other things. So it would be silly of me to say that, oh, this is the only thing I do, and I would love it, but you can't be part of a basketball team if you're sailing around the world with your mom. So it's a good balance, and I appreciate the influencer community for doing that, and the marketing community. I mean, that's at the end of the day, it keeps that cycle going.
So you bring up a really good point, because we have, and I'm going to segue this. So watch this. This is my giant segue of every podcast.
Segue.
Okay?
You know what you do? You need to be on a segue when you do this and go across the background. I'm going to segue, and then here goes David just flying off of like the tourist studio here in St. Augustine.
I'll just start moving. I'll just start moving. So, I mean, you talk about the influencers. There are people out there that pay great attention to their YouTube channels and monetize all that and whatever. Then there's the people out there that just get up and do it. And one of the things that we have, and we being Erik and I, Erik longer than me, that we've been working on for a long time in this industry, is trying to break down just this perception that you have to have a lot of money to become a boater. Okay.
Oh my God.
Or you have to be incredibly successful to become a boater. Or, like our friends at YCA, the Young Cruisers Association, always talk about. It's like, don't wait for retirement age to start living like you're retired.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And this is all the stuff that we've been working on for a long time. I'm glad you sort of touched on that, because we have this little magazine called Latitudes and Attitudes. Oh my God, look at that. You have your own copy. What
Oh my
are
God.
the odds?
Oh my God. Influencer. No, just kidding.
Oh, there you go, right there. So the whole purpose and goal of Latitudes and Attitudes, the mission of Latitudes and Attitudes, is to tell the stories of the people that are out there cruising and living the lifestyle, but also, just inspire people to take control of that dream that they have and get out there and do it, and hopefully do it a lot sooner than they ever thought it was possible to do it. Period.
Yeah,
That's it.
I've been around it a couple, it's funny because, like I said, the whole reason I approached Brian about the passage was to really learn how to live on a boat myself, right? Because my biggest challenge in my mind was, oh gosh, I don't know electric, I don't know plumbing. What would I do? I'm gonna die, then and then you hesitate, which, it's just taking that first step. And there's so many really cool options. The more I'm traveling and the more I'm seeing, there's so many great options. You can go there's a couple apps out right now, and you can go mate on a boat for a week. You don't have to have a vacation and spend $30,000, which is a lovely vacation, I'm sure, but you don't have to do that in order to go cruise. You can kind of flip it around and have this true authentic experience that is so full, where you're actually engaged in the process of the boat and process of the sail and process of the ocean and anchoring and all these cool things that build a character. And it's so much more satisfying than vacation, right? It's that entire just fulfillment piece. And I think that's where people get afraid, or they get kind of stuck in their Netflix binging and all those other things. And all you have to do is just flip the idea of what you're going to do with your free time, and make it a more of a full life. And I think that's where the barrier exists. It's not that complicated. Are things hard sometimes? Sure, but it's all a learning experience. And I think that's kind of lost a little bit. And I think that's kind of hindered a lot of people from jumping into any kind of boating. Is a little bit of fear, and not of the ocean, right? So that's been a really cool. I want to live on a boat. I come from my genetics, people living on boats. I took about a 10-year hiatus from boats completely, because I was doing what I was supposed to do as a good Southern girl, and did the whole college and whatever. And because my dad and everybody said there was no future in any of this. And then once I realized that was ridiculous, and now I'm back, it's like my life is so much more satisfying, engaging in these things, because you're part of the energy of the planet, right? You're really touching the world. And so I think I hope I joined Young Cruisers, by the way, because of you guys. But that's my hope, is that these influencers are helping people come to the realization that your life can be so much more fuller. It's not, subscriptions and apps and sitting, you can be outside and really live.
Talking about the learning process, Heather, I'm curious because what Brian's gone through, starting on a 25-foot boat, and then establishing a company, managing a company, and then growing it and doing all that other kind of stuff. Where you guys are at right now, Heather, give us just a kind of a high level view of where you guys are at with PHIBER Systems, which product that really is going to help reshape how people cruise. And then Brian, I want to do a deep dive on, when you started with Solar Stik. I mean, was it because you were out cruising around on the 25-foot boat that you recognized that you needed additional energy, and then you created this product? And did you get the inspiration from your own cruising lifestyle to create this product and create this company? I mean,
You need it's
the genesis is interesting.
Kyle, near death experience. That needs to be flashing up as be real, like hashtag near death experience.
I'll give you the full download on it all. It won't take but a few minutes, but
sure, please do.
You want to answer the first question?
Well, I'll tell you what, Brian, why don't you go ahead and tell us the genesis, and Heather, bring us up to speed on where you guys are at when Brian's done.
Yeah, because it's a great story.
All right. So I mentioned that I got tricked into buying a sailboat when I lived in the Keys. And I was 26 years old. My boss came to me one day and said, hey, trying to get you into sailing for a while. I got a friend that's got a boat for sale up in Tampa for $1,000. And I'm going to go buy it if you don't. And I'm going to bring it down here to sell it. And I said, well, how much is it worth? And he says, 10,000. 26, $9,000 profit's a lot of money. I thought, shit, I can do that. And so I bought the boat sight unseen, sent the guy $1,000, went up there with another idiot that never set foot on a boat before. And I borrowed a 6-horsepower Johnson outboard. He said I would need to bring an engine because the engine that was in it didn't run. And I got to this boat, and it was a 1984 Hunter 25.5. And a little research on the boat before I went up. I was told it was a pocket cruiser. And so pocket cruiser, small boat. You could camp on it. You could glamp on it. It has a little galley. It's got a head. It's got a couple berths, and you could weekend and maybe spend a little more time on it if it had the right gear. And so I get up there to this boat, and I go back to the canal where it's sitting, and it had been sitting there for 9 years unmoved. It had literally grown to the bottom of the canal via a column of oysters. And so the tide would go up and down, but the boat just stayed level. And it was the most ridiculous thing. And it took us 3 days to get it hacked free from the bottom of the canal and get it to float. And then we took drywall screws and some 2x4s, and we put this engine on the back of the boat. It had a little single cylinder Yanmar engine in it that didn't run. It was frozen solid. So we put it. Luckily, the boat design allowed for either an inboard or an outboard. So we shoved an outboard on the back, and we took off, and we headed for Key West. And the first 24 hours of that trip, that was the most magical part of my entire sailing adventure now, coming up on 30 years. Because I'd never seen an unpolluted sky at night. And when we went out on this boat. I still don't know what the heck we were thinking, but man, I mean, the magic of being on the water at night, and there were birds, and the moon was out, and the stars filled the sky, and it was you can't describe it unless you're there. All of us have stories that all you can do is try to describe, but you can't capture it on a video, you can't capture it on a screenshot. You just have to be there. And that's what that first 24 hours was for me, being on a boat. And I've been chasing that feeling ever since. And I've hit it a few times. The rest of the trip was really where the business side of this thing was born. The inspiration was the first 24 hours. My business acumen was born for the next 4 days. we didn't have any food on the boat. We just thought it would be like we thought if we could drive from Key West to Tampa and one afternoon we could be in Key West in a day or two. Had no idea about navigation. This is pre-cell phone. This was pre smartphone. This was back when GPS wasn't even a thing other than a box that had some numbers on it. And there were some charts on the boat and there was a compass. And we just figured we could dead reckon it. If we headed straight south out of the port we left, we would end up right in Key West. And the little 6 horsepower was the only thing that really got us where we were going. But we lost our rudder. I had to learn how to sail a boat with no rudder because we didn't have enough fuel. It was awful. It was so bad when we finally on the 5th night as we were coming into the Keys. We didn't know. All I was doing was just praying for some sort of light somewhere. We had no radio, no life jackets, and on the horizon I could see 5 red blinking lights, and I knew those lights. Those were the Saddle Bunch Army communication stations down in the Keys. And that was the moment I knew I was going to be okay. I was going to survive the trip. And there was points there, David and Erik, where I don't know that I was done. I was just so done. I wanted off that boat. The weather was awful. We were bouncing around like a cork. Boat was getting tossed. We were bailing the water out of the boat with a milk jug. And I don't ever want to relive that. And we got to the beach. I drove the boat up onto the beach. I got off it. I walked away. I walked up to US 1. I flagged down a passing car, and anyways, I made it back to Key West. But I left that boat. I wanted nothing to do with boating ever again at the end of that trip. And had no intentions of going back to that boat. But doggone Coast Guard called about 5 days later, the place I was working. They said, "Mr. Bosley, we have a boat that apparently belongs to you on the beach here up at Saddle Bunch, and I'd like to know what your intentions are with the boat." And at that point, I realized I had to go get it. I didn't have any money to do anything, to pay the fines or anything. So I talked to my boss, and we went out in his power boat. We drug it off the beach. We drug it through the canal system up into a little corner of Big Coppet, and parked it there where it sat for 2 years. And I was haunted by that first 24 hours for a long time, because I was something magic about that would not let go of my soul. And that feeling ultimately won out and made me go back to that boat. But I made myself a promise that I would never get back on a boat unless it was capable of sustaining me offshore, providing me the life support that I needed to do what I wanted to do, which was experience those first 24 hours of feelings and sights and sounds. Yep. And that was the genesis of my first product, which was called the Solar Stik. And I spent another 2 years there in Key West, building my boat. I would go down and hang out at the marinas with the old salts and listen to them tell stories. And ironically, I was coming into sailing on a 25-foot boat, and they were coming after having sailed in some cases around the world on their boats, and they were coming into the small boat range like I was, because they realized the money that they had spent with the 50-footers and the steel hulls and all this other stuff. They wanted to continue the lifestyle, but they couldn't do it and continue to afford the boat that they had. So they were moving to a 25-foot boat range to maintain the lifestyle. So I came in at 25 feet and they came down from 25 feet, but we were right at the same point. We wanted to go out and experience these things. So they taught me so much about boats. And literally on the weekends, we would sit around and go scrap the yards for bits and pieces of metal and things that we could use to build stuff for our boats. And that's where the Solar Stik was born. It was born on the back of my boat. I had a 25-foot boat, not a lot of real estate to work with. And I didn't, at the time you had chart plotters are starting to become a thing. You had boat refrigeration. You had all these creature comforts that required power, but on a 25-foot boat, you don't have a lot of deck space to work with. And I didn't want to monopolize all my canvas. So the Solar Stik, as a space-saving apparatus, was born, but also took advantage of basic physics to allow for me to move the panels and collect PV power to basically charge batteries all day, as opposed to having a big flat fixed array. So that idea took root. We put these contraptions on the back of the boat. We took off. We started sailing. I sailed about 15,000 miles between the Bahamas and the Southeast US, all back and forth over multiple years. And in 2003, I'd sailed enough places and had stayed in touch with the guys that mentored me back in the day. And they had similar contraptions. We didn't have a name for it. And they all had the same experience, which was every place we went, somebody would come up and go, "That's really cool. Where'd you get that thing?" And I thought, man, this is marketable. We could sell these to boaters and get rich and continue to stay out here and sail. So while Heather's doing that, I'm going to pitch this thing for 1 second, because this is a Solar Stik right behind me. That is a Solar Stik on the back of my now big boat. And there's two of them. You see one in the background over there as well. Yeah. But that's where my business side of things took off.
So tell me, Brian, I know that Solar Stik's been around for a while, very successful product for you and mariners worldwide. And I know that you've reached into other industries with this product, which has been wildly successful. But now this new product, PHIBER Systems, this is something that, again, I think can help to revolutionize the cruising space and really provide boaters with an entirely different experience, comfort, security, and just the I don't know, the joy of cruising. So maybe tell us just a little bit about how this product PHIBER Systems came about and what it's about.
So another tragic start to a story. PHIBER was born on this boat. Solar Stik was born on my last 25-foot boat, but PHIBER was actually born on this boat, again out of frustration and trying to solve a problem. I had I sail out of St. Augustine, and there's a lot of river here, so you got to run the engines a lot to get in and out of the channels. You can't really sail in the river. If you're going to go sailing, you got to go outside. So running the boat in these waters proved to be a challenge for my diesel engines. The water here is full of runoff, phosphates, and other things from agricultural lands that are nearby. And so I was at 500 hours. I was having some overheat problems with my diesels, and I had pulled the boat out in January 2020, right at the start of COVID, to do a little bit of routine maintenance. I told the mechanics, I say, hey, I'm having a little overheat problems. I want to check the impellers, routine stuff. 500 hours on the engines is not a lot. So we went through the routine checks and everything looked good. And then we got deeper into it, and we found out that my heat exchangers were plugged at about 80 to 90%. They had calcified on the inside, and the water flow through the unit was so restricted that the engine couldn't transfer heat back to the water to dump it overboard. Due to all the calcification and mineral deposits that had scaled on the inside of the exchangers. So I was surprised at first, and then I kept thinking to myself, well, there's got to be a way to mitigate this. Somebody's got to have a way to solve this problem. So I started doing research, and I got online, and I found 1,000 YouTube videos where some guy standing in an engine room with a bucket of caustic chemicals, and they're doing their flushes with the engines and taking all the scale and everything out, and it looked like a lot of work, but also didn't look real good for the engine or for the stuff that was being used going back into the water. And I hesitated at that, and I did a little more research, and I found guys in engine rooms with garden hoses with these big diesels, and they're taking this garden hose and they're shoving it into an engine raw water intake, at the basket, and they're feeding the engines fresh water. I said, well, that makes more sense. So I started looking at how to do it. I started looking at how to actually freshwater flush engines. And my first thought was, somebody's got to have a freshwater flush system that was just push button, because it couldn't be that hard, right? And Oh man, I looked and looked and looked. I could not find anybody that had a push button freshwater flush system for inboard engines. And so about this was in March, April timeframe that this is all starting to take shape. And you might remember when COVID hit and they shut everything down. And at Solar Stik, all my engineering team, everybody, we just ground to a halt one day to the next. And the entire team was doing this. So I thought, well, we got a few minutes to innovate, and I, we were going to bridge the gap somehow. And so we started. I went back to my engineering team and said, here's what we're going to do. I drew up a little system on a literally on the back of a cardboard cereal box from the break room. And I said, I want to put this together like this and see if this works, because I want to try, flushing my engines with fresh water at the push of a button. And we pioneered it. We ordered the parts, we put it all together, and my engineers, a couple of them came back to me during the process and said, hey, this is a really good idea. This is, they'd been doing some of their own research, and they realized there wasn't anything else out there quite like this. They were trying to find something to build to compare with. And when they weren't finding anything, their sensors and, their ears perked. And they convinced me to look at this a little bit more as a potential product that Solar Stik could build. So I reached back to, I packaged up what we had and I sent it to my patent attorney down in Orlando. And I said, Justin, what do you think about this, man? I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to solve a problem, but you think this is worth pursuing? He calls me back 2 days later and he goes, if you don't do this, I'm going to fire you because you're a dumbass. Okay, well, I guess we're going to do this. So that's where the fiber cast was made. And we've been now coming up on 5 years of that process. Here we're going into March. So it's just about the same time that I drafted up that original cardboard cereal box, which I still wish I had, but I don't think we do anymore. But that's where fiber came from. And if you don't know the science behind the importance of fiber, it's this. ABYC's had a rule for 70 years. Since 1954, you don't take freshwater systems on a boat and connect them to seawater or raw water systems on a boat. You just don't do it. Now, freshwater flushing is it's almost intuitive the way it works, because with outboard engines, people flush outboard engines at the end of every run cycle. That is the number one maintenance, prescribed maintenance from the OEMs to preserve your engine. So it would hold true in my book that doing the same thing with inboard engines was the right way to pursue it, but a garden hose was not the way to do it. With bigger engines, especially, you got to put the right amount of flow into the system to make it to actually supply the raw water networks of the inboard engine, which is a lot more volumetrically than an outboard engine. You got to do it while it's running. In order for an inboard engine to be flushed, you have to do it with the raw water pump on. It has to pull the water through the engine, and you can't back feed water into the exhaust manifold with the engine off, because it'll get into past the valves, it'll flood the engine, you'll hydrolock the engine, and it's really bad. So all of these factors came right to the surface quickly when we were looking at doing a freshwater flush for an inboard engine. And so a couple things became clear. I needed a brain that could control it, and we needed a special manifold that would bridge the gap between freshwater and seawater networks. And also, you want to protect the freshwater network, but also supply the right flow into the inboard engine.
So I think the point of the story here, because I'm going to jump in here because you're getting like way into technical, is the fact that he overheated some engines. It was like 30 grand worth of bills. He went, oh shit, I don't want to pay this. And also, I'm a dumbass.
Balance right here, balance.
Also, I'm a dumbass and didn't do my research on buying a 50-foot boat with twin diesels on it and what I was in for from a maintenance perspective. And then what's crazy is that the invention, innovation, the pioneering subsequently makes it where we challenge the 75-year standard, which is this is status quo. Here's your engine. It's an inboard. There's nothing you can do about it. Every 500 to 1,000 hours, you're plugging 15 Gs per engine. And so we are literally changing the standard. And ABYC, for those who don't know, is all the standards for engineering across all boats, and actually it ties in internationally as well. So we're actually changing engineering standards to allow for this, but also to prepare the entire industry for a new mode of thinking. I kind of liken it to the zipper, right? We don't really know how we connected our pants before then, but the zipper made it real easy. It just happened, right? It's a new standard. And so what the point of the entire, 101 on bioscaling and vacuums and pressures that I'm just going to kind of keep you all from having to listen to, which we have extensive YouTube. Plug for the YouTube channel. We have extensive, gorgeous YouTube videos that are minutes and minutes long, but it makes it where it's at a touch of a button. So now, instead of garden hoses or the 500-hour service at 15 grand, we literally, the thing that he invented and that we've pursued and now are in manufacturing for, is accessible to everybody at a very reasonable price point, because the value is enormous, but our desire is to actually change the standard and have everybody, cruising community and beyond, able to preserve their engines, and that will keep you on the water longer. Or, the really sad part is I hear people saying, "Oh, I didn't use my boat as much because I'm going to incur that 500,000 hour service."
Yeah.
So they don't use their boats, and now just with a touch of a button and some fresh water, your issues are nil. I mean, it's pretty amazing what it does.
Hey guys.
Well, this is really starting to set a whole new standard for how people maintain their engines. The freshwater flush on saltwater boats just absolutely makes a ton of sense. So this is a product that won the Innovation Award at IBEX last year, correct?
Yes.
So it's something that that there are very few products in the marine industry that are introduced every single year that can rise to the level of this is a game changer. And so our cruisers that are out there, whether they're luxury trawler owners or sailboaters, chances are very likely they're probably in seawater, ocean water, salt water, and they need to learn about this if they want to save significantly on their potential repair costs or maintenance costs. And B, it's great for the life and the health of the boat. And C, the resale value increases pretty significantly as well. So you guys have gone from this cruising lifestyle, and Brian, it sounds like you've taken your experiences on your boats and what you need and translated them into successful companies. So
my problem is that I don't turn off, and I obsess over things to the point where it drives everybody crazy. Like her, because I'll sit here and perseverate engineering and the history of it at the macro level. It is a solid product, and I didn't. It wasn't intention. The intention was not to go out and do this again. Solar Stik was enough of a journey for me at that point, but I am really passionate about this one, probably even a little more than I was about Solar Stik, because I realized the enormity of the problem. And that just comes from having been immersed in the development of it and testing of it for 5 years. And so I do live and breathe fiber at this point. And that's why I'm so weedy with my answers about it.
So I've got to ask this question because Erik brought up the IBEX Innovation Award. So for those listeners and watchers, viewers, whatever of our podcast, IBEX is International Boat Builders Exhibition. It's an international trade show every single year in Tampa. We've been many, many times. So if this thing started, and after I ask you this question, I would like you to expand on because PHIBER is an acronym. So I'd like you just to cover that real quick. But PHIBER, Heather, you've been very clear about PHIBER, like flushing your gut, use PHIBER for that. So, your marketing definitely is interesting. We love it. But if it started around COVID with the idea and your team was sitting around twiddling their thumbs, nothing to do, why did it take until 2024 to actually get the Innovation Award?
Let me answer that.
Go ahead. Nope. Oh, you.
So when you talk about improvements in any industry, it doesn't matter boating or otherwise. Usually it's incremental. Somebody makes a slightly different chemical, or they change the orientation of a hose to make it easier to use. This is truly disruptive. We're basically taking something that you don't want, a hydrostatic lock, and using the principles of it to actually help the engine. And it took a long time, a lot of money, a lot of lessons learned the hard way. I don't know if you've ever seen, primary gates and solenoid valves melt. Because, it was truly, it has been a researched and developed project. And before we ever launched for sale, actual selling the product in last summer, trial and error, testing it out, installing on 20 different boats, running the boats, running them for a long time. A couple of boats had some personal things happen to them, had nothing to do with our system. Just, running into stuff in the river and
oh my gosh,
thinking, but our system still worked after being submerged for more than 24 hours. But it's not something fly by night. It's well tested, and it has to be, right? So forever, outboard engines have been flush with a garden hose, but inboard engines have never had anything. And so to really understand, I became part of this a few years ago and have been through the business development side of it, and to approach a major engine manufacturer. And with this product, we had to know that we were right, know our shit, everything from hydrodynamics to biologics, all of these things. Because you'd be surprised, freshwater bodies of water, we're talking to those people that boat there too. They have a similar or dissimilar, but need for flushing. And so as far as IBEX, there's a lot of rules with IBEX, first of all. But before we brought it in as an innovative product, it had to be tried and tested. It's innovative, but it's also proven. It is not a thing that we made once that's really cool that now we have to go figure out how to replicate. It's kind of opposite. It took the time, and thankfully with the success of Solar Stik, it was able to be afforded by Brian all this time and money. I mean, we're talking hitting up almost $750,000 before we ever started last year selling, to invest. This is a serious investment. And so it's beyond just a passion. It's a need to change the industry. It's everything from changing standards. And so that's why we waited. We probably could have done it the year before, but there was some other things that, came into play. But we really did launch last summer. And that's when the pursuit of that IBEX award came into play, which we will be pursuing another one. We've actually innovated another product. And it's unbelievable. It doesn't exist in the industry, but when something new happens, then all these other products must be created. And again, because of having access to great resources, so we're going to be applying for another IBEX innovation.
We don't have time for that discussion on this podcast.
Oh no, we don't need time. That will be for next year's podcast.
What does PHIBER? What does PHIBER stand for, please?
You want to do it?
Pressurized hydro injection for brine evacuation remediation. And it's just a fancy way of saying freshwater flush. Yep, you mentioned it earlier. The reason, we're on the active waterway here.
And there's gorgeous,
beautiful
yellowfin that just went by.
Right now.
Wow.
Anyways, so PHIBER, we were trying to come up with a name for a flushing system. And what are you going to call it? I mean, you could come up with 1,000 corny names. And so the word fiber was chosen because that's what we as humans take to maintain our internal plumbing. And so fiber just made sense to maintain your boat's plumbing. A dose of fiber flush every day or every run cycle.
Keeps it regular.
Keeps everything regular.
But it's spelled differently. It's pH instead of F. It's pH.
Pressurized hydro injection. Yep, fiber.
PHIBER.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's how he made it work, right? You wanted to be fiber, but then you had to find some fancy marine words to articulate what it did.
If you want to find out more about it, go to PHIBER Systems.com.
You got it.
All right.
You can also follow
What's
our
the future
Instagram.
looking like for you guys? We are interested in finding out what your future cruising life is going to be looking like for you guys. You've got two well-established companies in the marine space. You're working from your boat. You're living the dream. And we want to know how to do that and what the future is going to look like for you guys.
I think you'll find a lot of sailors out there and cruisers in general solve problems on their own in the field. And it's such a hotbed for innovation. And I'm constantly amazed. This is one of the reasons I love going and seeing other people out there, because I'm constantly looking for the stories of what solutions and what problems have been solved. And I think that if I could close this on one note, is if you're watching this and you have ideas out there, don't just take it for granted that nobody's interested in your idea. Bring it to the forefront. Crow about it a little bit. You never know what's going to happen. I've been fortunate enough to have some resources to have pulled PHIBER up, out of the blue, if you will, with after Solar Stik. But I tell you, man, the world needs good ideas, especially these communities that we operate in. Everybody needs to share the ideas, and so bring it out, man. It's you might find an Easter egg in there.
As far as the cruising community and what's next for PHIBER, we intend to actually take this boat and have an office not here in St. Augustine, that's kind of somewhere else. We were just with a major engine manufacturer this week it's a diesel engine manufacturer that focuses on the cruising community, on the sailboat community. So we will be working with their dealer installers, Texas to St. Martin, and also in South Africa at some of the major manufacturers. So the cruising life right now looks a little more work than play. And for the next 6 to 12 months while we really get this thing launched up. But I will tell you, we have not received one no yet on any boat manufacturer, engine manufacturer. In fact, it's leaning in and signing installer agreements. So my hope is that that adoption rate continues. So then, we can then pursue the other things, because he didn't talk about it, but he created a refrigerator out of a toilet. We've got this other design thing we're working on.
I can't wait to see how you market that one.
Wait, listen. We could have an entire podcast on naming things.
Right,
that's
there.
My favorite.
This is already the longest podcast we've ever had. So have a great idea.
It's just on for at least a few days.
Have a great idea. Hire Heather to manage it, because she's got all the extra time in the world.
All of it.
Yep.
All
Eric,
of it.
what you got?
So here's a statement that I want to quickly make. As you're going to St. Martin, throughout the Caribbean, throughout the Gulf of America, over to Texas, just keep me in mind if you need rail meat. I wanna thank you guys very, very much for your time today. I greatly appreciate it. Not only
Eric, you can come along, because I'm like 5 feet tall, and you can like lift things or reach the top shelf.
Yeah,
because I'm not. That is a service that is greatly needed. So
well, if I can't be there, I'll get you some elevator shoes, Heather. So I just want to thank you guys. I think that, Brian, some of the things that you're doing to innovate these products and help the cruising lifestyle is invaluable. And Heather, how you're getting that kind of content out there to the cruising lifestyle, also invaluable. And it's important. Normally, we don't do podcasts with people who advertise in Latitudes and Attitudes, but you guys have such an incredible story about your cruising life, what you're doing, and how you're getting those things that you're doing out to market. That it's important for our cruisers to understand that. So I just, again, want to thank you for that today.
I want to bring one more point up before we cut this off, and that is Latitudes and Attitudes has been my inspiration since 1998. I have been a subscriber to your organization on multiple levels, and I got to tell you, man, it's you guys have instilled the dream in me through the years, and you keep it going. So still read it every time it shows up. It goes right to the coffee table and it gets fully consumed. So thanks for doing what you do. It's really important. And, we appreciate it.
Thank you. And now that you're a paid advertiser, we'll give you a comp subscription. Okay.
What are you doing, David? Just giving it away? Jeez.
You got a business to run, man. No, don't do that.
No, just all you need to do is every now and then just drop in randomly in your podcast, like,
look inside the cover of the magazine here.
Yeah, there you go.
Just
Well,
random.
I do know.
Interviewing like some 20-year-old girl that's circumnaviged by herself, and in like in the middle of the sentence, you know, it was at Super Troopers, and just in the middle of the sentence to be like, look inside the inside cover of Latitudes.
We appreciate you guys, truly.
Brian, there's a bottle of bourbon out there for you somewhere, brother. That'll be coming your way soon. With much
It's already.
gratitude.
Listen, anytime you want to bring that bottle, come on, man. You got a place to stay, and wherever I'm at, you can always call it home.
Love it, love it, love it. Thank you guys again. I really appreciate it. Enjoy your cruising lifestyle, and be sure to check in with us on a regular basis.
Sounds great, guys. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
My mind is made up. I'm gonna sail away. Latitudes and attitudes will help me find my way with my loving cup. A little salt and a